Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of Soul Over Matter podcast. Today on the show, we have two special guest speakers. We have Helen Lim and JR. They are podcast hosts of Awakened, Now What? So, welcome to the show, Helen and JR. How are you guys doing today?
Doing
Thanks.
great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it feels good to be on this, especially I think in light of this season, it seems like people are having did you guys feel like there was like a slump and then it's kind of where like emerging from it?
Yeah, the eclipse season, the Scorpio season, like movie. I almost feel like a wet butterfly, like the wings are wet, like, okay, what's moving, what's unearthing and being reborn again, because it's a constant process, right?
It really is.
Yeah. So Helen, do you want to talk more about that? Like your journey, your even just the season you're in, right? Of what you just shared, that rebirth, that energy.
Yeah, I really noticed specifically to yesterday and this morning feels like a portal opening, and that maybe that has to do with our book that just launched, Michelle, Heart-Centered Leadership. Because Clarissa, another co-author, and I had our book party yesterday. And because we did an event, and I think as somebody who more identified as an introvert, and seeing how the power of the event, even the power of this podcast, JR and I have through this last year, I'm just like, wow, there's impact to be had. There's like energies to be moved, emotions to be moved. And like, why am I sitting on the sidelines still? Like, is this introvert label serving me? I'm so glad to have connected with JR. And JR, do you want to speak to kind of our mission with Awaken Now What?
Yeah. So our podcast illuminates one's spiritual awakening and ascension. And we started it because we were at a point where, we were asking ourselves questions of what next? What do we do now? How can we further expand, ascend, and, gain access to higher levels of consciousness? And with this podcast, we delve into different, there's infinite amount of topics when you enter the world of spirituality. And so our podcast, takes baby steps into each, topic that we want to explore. And we help break it down for some of the listeners that have just awakened, that have gone through it recently or have been going through it for years. And we really just want to make this information accessible and entertaining. It can be very daunting when when you first awaken, when you first open your spiritual book.
Yes, playfulness is like a big part of me and JR. So he's a Leo sun and I'm a Leo rising. So you know that we have the fun there in our show.
I love that. And I'm Leo midheaven, so that's like career, like public image. So we all got our Leo energy. I love that. Yeah. I've been noticing more playfulness needed in this realm of spirituality, of awakening, right? Because it's like we dive in, right? Willingly or unwillingly, it doesn't matter. It's when we're meant to. And I think at times it can be so, like you said, daunting and overwhelming. And to bring light to it brings that balance. So how do you guys do you do like different topics for each episode? Does it kind of flow? How do you make light of this human conscious journey?
And I think one part is because JR and I have been at our own awakenings and ascensions for so long that we understand, like, if it's not light, you're just like kind of in this like drudgery, and that's not a way to live, and we're both so open to new experiences and like consciously bringing in new energy. I think that already, like, we're living lightness, right? What else do you have to add, JR?
Yeah, each episode, like the floor is ours. It's open to talk about anything. We usually cater it to a specific topic, Like the last episode we did was called Going Quantum with Alice Marie, who you just interviewed. And it really just delved into the quantum, and we branched off into specific conversations about other things other than quantum healing. But yeah, it's really just a deep dive into one spiritual topic, so that the listeners can really gain insight into uh, difficult topic, because quantum healing isn't really mainstream. It's
Yeah.
it's barely known about. When you step into the spiritual world, you hear it every now and then, but you don't really know what it's truly about. And so that's what we try to do with each episode, is to really have the listeners come away with something that they can practice on their own awakening.
Amazing. And I have to ask, Helen, you said you've both been on the journey for a long time. Do you both care to share like your journey, like where it began, how it started?
Yeah, I'd love to dive into that. And as additional note about our show, we have a series within called Spotlight, and we highlight people and the journey that they've had. So making it real, like, there's so many ways to have an awakening, and not feeding into the, oh, it's supposed to be immediate or whatever, like a big event in your life. Like there's so many ways to do it. Kind of like how our book talks about leadership. Center leadership. Yeah.
There's no cookie cutter in the new world. No,
yeah,
not at all.
Have you on our show, because I envision your episode will be such a, like, you're going to transmit the flow of the feminine and everything. It's going to be so beautiful. So yes. Okay. So my journey started when it was around my Saturn return. So similar to you, when I read, like I said, like we talked about, our chapters resonated with each other. Yeah. So just on the cusp of starting my Saturn return, I was with a guy already for 7 years. So, first love, naive, innocent, all in, thought we were going to get married, side swiped, boom, one day he broke up with me. And it was such a very imprinted time in my life, because when he said those words, like I felt like lightning struck through me. But it was what I needed, because then I started a journey of questioning, and I got led to yoga. I was
Hello?
following the intuitive breadcrumbs.
We lost each other. Maybe it was my internet connection. Okay, so you
Yeah.
said, I'll make sure to edit that. You said it felt like a lightning struck.
So I felt like lightning. Is it okay? Sorry, before.
I think we're good. Is it
Okay.
me? I don't know if it's me. Can you guys see each other okay?
Good on
Yeah. Mine's continuous. Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's me. Okay, lightning struck.
So yeah, I felt like I got struck by lightning when he said those words, but it was the best thing that could have happened, because then I started a lot of questioning, like, what is life anyway? What am I doing here? What am I about? And that led me to yoga. So my own breadcrumbs, because Michelle's chapter is called Following Your Intuitive Breadcrumbs. And it went from yoga to Reiki to alt MBA, which is where I really understood I didn't want to be a pharmacist. It was this 4-week sprint program, a lot of writing prompts, and then eventually to taking that year sabbatical, which led me to plant medicine. And then this past kind of COVID time, it was like coaching and shamanic energy medicine. Yeah. And JR has a similar story of heartbreak catalyst, right?
Yeah, very similar to your story, Helen. And it also started during my Saturn return. So around 27, I was really on the dating scene, hardcore. I was dating and dating and dating, and I was living the bachelor life, and I was loving it. Actually, I kind of missed those years, but one experience in particular was I went through serious heartbreak, which then led me down a path of spiritual awakening. It was one night in a nightclub. I was actually under the influence, where I realized that there is no separation. And it was that exact moment that led me down the path of spiritual studies, spiritual literature. I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading things that confirmed that there was no separation. I would have these visions. I would write them down in my phone. I would journal, and I would always have these visions confirmed by new readings. And so that really inspired me to dig deeper. And to once I realized that there's no separation, the floodgates open. It's like, what about this? What about this? Energy, we're all energy. On a subatomic, microscopic level, we're all just atoms floating in fields of energies. And then, how can we transmute bad energies? How can we be a beacon of light to other people who are still living in the separation phase, in the 3D phase? And yeah, and me and Helen started dating one of my best friends, and we at the time they started dating, we didn't really talk about spirituality. I never really talked about spirituality with my friends because it was beyond their understanding at the time. It was beyond their understanding. It was beyond my understanding at the time because holy fuck, what am I what have I gotten into? My awareness was expanding and I didn't know how to relay that into conversation with my friends. And towards the end of my best friend's and Helen's relationship, we slowly started to talk about and come out about, oh, hey, you're spiritual, I'm spiritual. What kind of books have you read? What kind of things have you noticed? And by the end of it, I sent her an online session with me and a master healer, and she said I had a good voice for podcasting, and that was kind of the catalyst in us starting our own podcast. So we've been at the podcast now for over a year, and we've had amazing response from our audience and our fans. So we'd like to keep the journey going.
Beautiful. Thank you both for sharing and sharing how you connected as well. How do you both feel? Because I'm obviously also a podcast host, right? And it's a different edge to share a podcast than, I wonder if you both feel the same, but it's different. It almost feels more vulnerable to talk on a podcast than to share on your Instagram stories or like have your session. So JR, you were saying how like you couldn't really open up to your friends. So how did it feel when people started finding out about your podcast, about spirituality, right? Coming out of the spiritual closet.
Really, that's really what it was. It was for years and years and years, I kept it all bottled inside. And starting the podcast was that full circle moment where, I spoke my truth to the world. And, I'm not afraid to say it anymore. Before, I was so worried about what other people thought. Other people thinking I'm crazy, that I'm insane. And that's, my own healing work that I had to do. And the podcast was a big healing part of my journey. And every episode we make now, we're always excited to talk into the microphone. Whereas before, you should have seen me and Helen practice before our very first podcast. We didn't know how to talk. It's like, what do we say? How do we say?
People are going to hear this. What do we talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Helen, how do you feel?
Or like, let's just record anything. I felt really excited and nervous. So I always feel like that's a good sign when you have both of those emotions at the table. Because it was like, oh, yes, this is a fun project. But then it's like, oh, wow, I'm really sharing things I barely share to my inner circle. And now like anybody can hear it. So I think that's probably a good segue of like the book too, right? The book kind of felt the same. It's like, oh, I'm really putting that out there.
Yeah.
But it's for a resonance, right?
Yeah, I think every modality brings its own gifts and its own healing, and it brings out the shadows, right? Like JR, you were saying, like the podcast is not just for your listeners, but it's also for anything we create is also for us, right? Anything we put out there is also for us. So honoring that. And yeah, Helen, I would love to hear how you felt. Is this the first time you're an author? Can you guys hear me? I feel like maybe it's all of our
is it lagging?
Yeah, I don't know if it's all of our energies because I did a podcast this morning. It was It was
That's what kind of happens.
fun.
It's the combination of these high frequencies kind of disrupting the.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had any issues before. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hello?
Oh, here she
There it is.
Okay, I'll do all my awesome editing. I put on my hotspot. We'll see.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm nomading, so I'm in
Oh,
a new house over the last couple of days. So it's
Cimatu.
always like, what's happening?
yeah. Where in the world are you?
Right now I'm in Durango, Colorado.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
neat.
Yeah, where are you both?
LA.
I love Cali. I was in San Francisco for a couple of years, but I love Southern California so much. Okay, so what were we saying? Oh, how like different modalities can bring out different healing, different
Mm.
edges, right? Different shadows. So Helen, you were saying how, I had asked if you've been an author before. Was this your first time like really putting your writing out into the world?
I've been in, like, I started a blog and I had a writing group and we put a ebook together, but it didn't nearly have like the amount of press that we did with heart-centered leadership. So it really just felt more like, hey friends, I wrote a book. But this one, we're like having launch parties. We all had the big Instagram celebrations. Like this really felt like we did this.
Yeah. How did you feel? How did you get to become an author in heart-centered leadership?
It was through Clarissa. So Clarissa and I met in a networking group, and then we just like kind of had an affinity toward each other and started a friendship. And then we did a trade for our services. And it turns out that we have very similar backgrounds where our families are refugees from the Cambodian genocide of the Khmer Rouge. And it was just so neat. And because she's been an entrepreneur for like 3 years, I really felt like she was a big sister because she was like, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity. So then I got connected to the book. And then when I met Caitlin, I felt like I was just like, I could talk about blah, 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 blah. And then Caitlin's like, okay, I can feel that you're a fit. And then I got to be a part of this awesome group.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
Mhm.
how has it felt for you being an author? Has it changed? Has it affected you? Like how has it affected you?
I think JR can probably attest to this, that it brought me really more closer to like who I am. Like my presence has come in so much more because of, I think, being authentic, because writing has always been something I enjoy. And like as a little girl, I always thought about either being a journalist or something. So getting to actually write and have it like be real, I think it's like bringing a piece of your soul back, I suppose. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, that soul retrieval. I think anytime we share our truth, share our expression, and it it lands differently, right? And it's kind of like the podcast we have too, right? I feel like with a podcast and a book, we never know who is listening or reading. So how do you both feel about that? Like, because I know how I feel about it. Like, how do you guys feel? Like, do you guys look at your podcast like locations, like see who's like tuning in? JR, can you speak to that of how it feels to know you have no idea who's tuning in?
I think that's the beauty of it too. Not knowing, putting your podcast out there, or not even your podcast, you're writing your book, like Helen said, is it can whoever's meant to find it will find it. And before we started this podcast, I told my friend, it's like he told me there's a bunch of podcasts with awakening in the title. I'm like, that's great. That's great. Whoever's meant to find our podcast will find it. And looking at the demographics, and the metrics and analytics of our podcast, it's people are listening to it all over the world, and it's insane. I remember showing the graphics to my girlfriend, and she was just in awe, like I was. I'm like, people are listening in Croatia, people are listening in Belgium, China, Australia, and just to see the amount of, countries that have access to it, it's just amazing. And I was on Reddit the other day, and it was I think a spiritual awakening subreddit where I recommended the podcast to anyone who needed it, and already had a couple subscribers from that. So it's it's amazing to see the amount of people who are curious and want to learn.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It is really beautiful to think about.
Mhm.
And it's permanent, right? Like, unless we delete our podcast, like we can't delete the books, but podcast, like it's out there. And Helen, how does that feel for you?
I feel like it's an honor, it's soul work. Like JR always talks about when he's doing that. He's like, I'm energized. Like, this is what, and then I always go soul work. And like, it's super enthusiastic, like how it's so fulfilling. And it feels right, when we understand that whoever's supposed to find it finds it. We are lucky enough where we're now starting a community with the listeners, and it's so
Amazing.
fun to talk to them even more deeply about the topics and to kind of guide them. Like, one of them was having a hard time once, and I was like, hey, I can hop on with you and do a little energy clearing. And it was nice to get that personal touch and have her feel better, knowing that really that's what JR and I want, to help them with their self-mastery. So that it's all the paying it forward, that's what kind of light work is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's about, it's holding the lantern, right? It's holding people's hands. It's like, it's none of us are above or below. It's just, we all decided and chose to awaken at different times. And it's really beautiful. And JR, I love what you said about your friend saying, well, there's a ton of podcasts with awakening in the title, right? And it's true. And it's like, but no one is you, right? No one is Helen and JR. No one has your essence. No one has your blueprint. And I firmly believe that we make contracts with our clients. We make contracts with every soul that we come across before we come back to earth. So it's like, we got to do the things. We got to be heart led. We got to trust. And yeah, there are going to be 50 million other podcast hosts, but someone needs you and your medicine.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right.
Love the way you put it.
So to like, and you guys can both talk to this too, of listening, like hearing those inner critics, because I also have found, right, it's like friends and family, they mean well, everyone always means well, but it's almost, it sometimes can be a reflection of our inner voice, right? It's like someone else is saying something outside of us, but it's actually a shadow within us that's being illuminated. And we get to face it and look at it, and then say, okay, I hear you, and I'm going to do this anyway, even if I have no idea what it's going to look like, or if one person listens, maybe it's that one person that you'll change their life. So
Right.
what kind of I don't want to say blocks, but like shadows came up for you both around even just sharing your voice, right? Like becoming coaches, becoming healers. Like, what were some lessons and moments that you had to kind of sit with and be like, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it anyway?
I'm thinking a little bit. JR, do you have?
That's okay. Take your
Yeah.
time.
It was really the moment I decided to become a coach, spiritual awakening coach. It was really just an intuitive gut punch that I needed to do it. I didn't know what it would look like on the other side. I just felt this immense pull towards it. And at the time I was struggling with that choice. I was like, really, do I really want to? And there's again, there's a gazillion spiritual life coaches out there, but like you said, there's going to be some people that need my voice, you know, and my own perspective on things. And yeah, once I committed to it, never looked back, and it's been an amazing journey so far. It was that really that an eternal struggle at first of, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to commit to this? And then once you commit, then everything kind of is an after effect. The podcast was an after effect of it. It really coincided with my coaching career, that podcast. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
Mm.
So that helps me with, I'll piggyback off of that, because I think, I mean, not a lot of my past behavior was like needing to look for safety. So that meant like having one foot in and having one foot out. So like true commitment was never really accessible for me, just because I had so much fear around not feeling safe. And in doing so much of the healing through coaching, through energy work, and then finally owning that I have these sensitivities towards energy work, I think that's what really helped me commit to. Because it's like, okay, yeah, I recognize these gifts, I recognize these sensitivities, rather being like, oh, I need to belong, you know, I can't stand out, I need to be just like everyone else. And that has really opened up more light in me, which allows me to hold people in their healing space more. And I find that the growth of our podcast is kind of like directly correlated to the more and more I heal and ascend too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think, I don't know who said it, but it's like entrepreneurship is like the greatest self-development journey.
Yeah,
It
I've
really
heard
is. It really is.
There's no guarantees. We have no idea what we're doing.
Right.
We're just following our heart, right? And trusting. And Helen, you said something about just doing it, right? And like just honoring and not really knowing how it's going to unfold. And I lost my train of thought of being liked, right? The people pleasing in us of and this is what I shared in my chapter, right? Like we're just taught to be logical and go to school and do the things and get married and have the children and the 401k and the house and the mortgage and all they're beautiful things. And where in those years did we know who we were, right? Where in those years did we have space to even know who I mean, like school-based systems. I'm a school-based speech therapist too, still part-time, and kids aren't given that freedom to find out who they are.
Right. There, and the whole, you know, fraudulent school system, we're told to, you know, sit down and shut up and listen, and we're not really taught to express ourselves or even get to know ourselves, like you said. Yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts
You can share.
About the false. We talk about it on the podcast a lot, of the false global narrative that we've been indoctrinated into. And the people who break away from that, you know, kudos to you. It's breaking away from these, you know, past programming, these old paradigms, and it's really stepping into the new energetic vibration of the new earth. And that's what we create, is to affect consciousness on deeper levels, so that it can reverberate throughout space and time, and people can snap out of this you know, matrix programming.
Yeah, following the herd, right? Wanting
Yeah.
to be liked, the cookie cutter, the boxes, and that's I think why I still do part-time work in the schools, because I know light work is needed. So I just do like independent contracting, but yeah, it's speech therapy, but it's not just speech therapy.
It's
These
more
kids
than that.
are, sorry.
It's more than that for sure.
Oh yeah, these kids are, some of them are like, I look forward to our session all week, and they have never met me in person, and it's it comes back to that programming, right? It comes back to remembering who we are, right? Because we're not finding out anything new, and we have clients. When you both have clients, it's not that we're telling them the answers. We're just shedding light on those aspects of their souls that have shut down for survival too, right? Like so much of what we do is for survival with our caregivers, with our teachers, with society. So yeah, I can talk about it as well. If you guys have more thoughts, feel free to share. I don't know if I've really touched on schools in my podcast, so.
No?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I keep thinking about this. I'm like, I don't have any kids yet, and me and my girlfriend talk about having one kid. Um, but it's gonna be a big choice for us as a couple, whether what type of schooling we want to pursue for our child, because the current system that's in place right now, I don't want to go anywhere near. The history books are false; they're inaccurate, and I think, as um, having a system to tell my child to sit down and shut up, it's not gonna, I'm not for that. I don't want to be a part of that. So it'll be an interesting um adventure for us as parents moving forward. Like, how do we want to educate our child?
Yeah.
That, I mean, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure of the answer yet. I have no clue right now. I have no clue, but I will eventually.
Yeah, and it'll be the perfect choice for you both and your child, and just even the awareness of, oh, the system isn't working.
Right.
Just that awareness alone can open up so many doors, and there's so many options now. Homeschooling, there's so many like child directed schools, there's like New Earth
Right.
schools. It's
Right. And I thought
yeah.
about this. It's no matter what you do, your child is always gonna venture out and do their own thing. Whether if it's homeschool, they're gonna grow up to an age and be like, "Why didn't you ever put me in public school?" It's like, I always think about that. That teenage animosity. Like, why didn't you ever do this? Why didn't you ever do this? I'm like, oh well, we had our reasons. We had our reasons. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, uh, no matter what, conditioning is a thing, and no matter what you do to your child, it's always going to be some sort of conditioning, whether it's in the love vibration behind it. There's always going to be some sort of conditioning that the child is then going to have to break through and
Mhm.
realize that was conditioning on some level. But you can always have the energy of love behind it, and so whenever they do realize that, they can be like, all right, you did this. I understand why you did it. I understand why you put me in homeschool. Now I want to go explore other things.
Yeah, we're human, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I don't have children yet either, and it's like I have friends that are like, well, I'm just gonna screw up my kids. I'm like, I mean, we all signed up for Earth School. We're all, they chose those lessons. You're not screwing them up. All of our souls chose to have these certain lessons and experiences, and I think just awareness alone grants you that ability to also heal what came before us, who came before us, right?
Right.
Yeah, beautifully said. I'm very curious about these forest schools, right? I think that means they like teach kids outside and things. So that'd be my vote for my future kid.
What kind of schools?
Forest schools?
Schools? Never heard
Yeah.
of it.
So like, are they out in nature all the time?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, I've, oh my gosh, all the schooling I did for speech, it's like the development of children, right? They need at least 60 minutes of outdoor activity a day.
Oh.
And it's like,
Yeah. Thinking
what
about it.
percentage of children are getting that? a day.
I was thinking about
Mm.
like my past experience. I was just always in the classroom all the time for a majority of the week, and covered by cement walls, brick walls, 24/7. Well, not 24/7, but 5 days a week. Uh, yeah, it's just, man, this school topic is pretty intense.
I love it. I really haven't talked about, and these children coming in are more awakened than we are,
Oh,
they're
Yeah,
like these
yeah.
they're
little masters. I work with some of these kids and I'm just like, wow, I didn't know any of this when I was your age.
right. This is the starseed children, the rainbow indigo children.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think, and working in the schools, like I grew up in New York, so the first couple of years of my speech pathology career, I was working in the Bronx, and
Mm.
um, I worked in an elementary school, and these kindergartners, I went to Catholic school all my life, so it was a little different,
Same.
but the public school, the standards of these children, there's no spectrum. It's like you are either passing or you are failing as a child. And with development, especially language development, it's like a 2-year range, 2-3 year range to learn how to read, to learn how to write. But these standards the pressure they're putting on children today, it's wild. Like I would go into these kindergarten classrooms, and literally from 8 a.m. until recess, they were sitting. Like they didn't have play periods. And then I think at the end, besides recess and lunch, the end of the day, they had like 40 minutes to play outside. And the teacher's like, well, he's not writing 3 sentences yet. I'm like, he can't even speak. Like speaking comes before writing. So yeah, it's I hate to say it's getting worse, but
Yeah, yeah.
the
It screws the
standards are just too much.
Yeah, it screws the kid up for life. I mean, when you introduce the pass or fail system, right? It's the introduction of polarity to the child at its youngest level. Pass or fail. It's teaching them to act within the system. You know,
Mhm.
sucks and
To be
sucks.
liked, kind of circling back to Helen, what you were saying,
Yeah.
like to be liked. And
Pass,
oh,
pass.
this is what I wanted to say before. It's, if we aren't our authentic true selves, we can't find the people that are our soul family. We can't find the people that need us or that we need, because we're so busy trying to chameleonize ourselves and like be something we're not, or continue the stories of who we thought we were. So it's beautiful, and I'm sure you both can attest to that. Like once you really started opening up and expressing yourself more, did your friendships change? Did your connections change? Your interests change, right?
Yeah, well, even within how our relationship started, right? Like I only knew JR as like my boyfriend at the time's fun best friend who liked to do fun things. But once we like were really talking about how much of our thoughts actually encompass the spiritual stuff and talk about meditation, like we talked about a whole plethora of things. And then we realized when we were starting and working on our podcast, like, oh wow, like this is soul family stuff. Like we were supposed
Mm.
to find each other, and yeah, it was through that boyfriend, but here we are today, and we can talk about anything openly. JR, you have stuff to share about soul family, right? Like you went through a whole journey around that.
Um, I mean, in regards to just to soul families in general, or
Yeah, well, your experience with it.
um, yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things I've learned about soul families over the past few years is they'll make themselves known to you when you're ready. Like,
Mm.
so Helen and I, like we were it was we got introduced at the point where we were supposed to come together and know each other and learn from each other and teach other people about the wisdom that we've both gained throughout our awakenings. And, I think as you raise your vibration and as you meet more of your soul family, some of your other soul family falls away because they're out of your orbit. I think we can all attest to that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting subject and topic. I saw a diagram the other day that my friend Terry sent me of the monad soul and all the soul groups and how they branch off into their own soul families, and kind of just like the multiverse, how we revolve around the people who are meant to be in our sphere at certain times, and then we move past that and we meet new soul family members. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wild. It's energy, right? It's science. It's like if we are changing, our vibrations, our energies are changing, we can't force things to continue. And I think that's also a testament to soul growth, right? To the path. This soul path is not easy,
No.
to awaken and to live in a society where a lot of times we are looked at as outcasts or as quote unquote crazy. But to trust that like friendships fall away, partners fall away, family falls away because we are dedicated to our growth. And sometimes it happens so organically that we don't even realize it. And I'm sure you both can attest to like clients coming in, they're like, oh, I can't let go of this job or this relationship. Nothing will take its place. We're also worried that like nothing will take its place, and we don't know how absolutely beautiful and amazing it can turn out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, life in the universe always have something like way more awesome than we could even imagine. So many stories to testify that.
And like what if I mean, I think about it, it's like I started my journey, like really started my journey 4 years ago. But like, what if we all just decided to stay in the spiritual closet?
Whoa. The denseness of that, I felt it in my gut.
Right? But
Yeah.
not just for our own journey and like our own health, because we physically get sick too if we're not
Yeah.
really
Expressing.
focusing on ourselves, but who we're here to help.
Mm.
Right.
And then that ripple, we help, and then those people help, and then they heal, and then they help others. And I mean, I'm sure you both can feel that as light workers. Like you go to the grocery store, you go to the you go to the bank, like we have a responsibility when we awaken.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you bring up a great point. It's are you stepping into the responsibility of your awareness? I think one of the biggest things I've learned is you have your awareness, you've achieved a certain awareness level. What responsibility does that entail? What does it mean for you? How are you? It's like I kind of liken it to the person who went to get their PhD, right? And then, graduated, got the degree, got the PhD, and then a year later they start working at fast food restaurant. Is he stepping into the responsibility of his new awareness, or is he taking a step back? No, there's nothing wrong with working on a fast food chain. I'm kind of, analogy and metaphor and allegory here. But I mean, your DNA encompasses your awareness level. And so it would really, be beneficial to whoever's out there, whoever's listening to this, to step into your awareness, the responsibility of your awareness.
I like how you sum that up too, the responsibility of your awareness. Because then if you think about, if we break down the word together, responsibility, right? It's our ability to respond. So we have awareness. Now, what is our ability to respond to that awareness?
Yeah.
Right? We can't turn the lights off when they're we turned them on. Well, we can, I guess.
To an extent, I feel, right? I'm sure you both have felt this. I don't feel it as much anymore, but in the beginning of my journey, I just wanted to go back to bed. I just wanted to go back to sleep and like F it all, like fuck this shit. Like, why did I choose this? No. But I knew I couldn't. So can you both talk to that? Like you're just like, okay, I guess this is it.
Yeah, I think for me, it felt very visceral, right? Like, because my whole being knew it was awakened when I tried to go do the comfortable, safe stuff. It was like, oh, I feel so bad. And then it's like, oh, I don't want to feel bad. Let me go feel good. So I really had to. It was and so I love now living from the pull, rather than a push of fear. It's like I'm really pulled with love and joy to do it.
Mm.
Yeah, as much as I wanted to go back to sleep, my mind was already in it. It was already expanded. It was already aware. Like, yeah, there is no separation. Yeah, where there are otherworldly beings who have had their hand in, Earth's creation and its timeline moving forward. There's way too much information out there for me to fully close the book on it, even though I wanted to close the book on it. It was just way too much information. I'm like, all right, let's dive deeper into to the more esoteric knowledge of the universe.
Mm-hmm. Just go deeper.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's like deeper bus. Like it's yeah, it's interesting. It's so meta to like talk about the awakening process, right? Because it's such a individual process
Mm.
and it's also so collective. I mean, the amount of people who've awakened since 2020, I am just
Right. That seems to be a theme. Like 2017 to 2020 seems to be a theme of people waking up. I mean, they do
a
wake up in
wave. I call them waves. Like
waves,
it
right?
sounds like the three of us were on a similar wave, and then
Yeah,
like
we're all part of the same wave. Yeah, yeah.
2020 was another wave, and I feel like this fall was another big wave.
Yes.
I mean, it's. I think I want to do a podcast episode about this, the Great Awakening. There's the individual awakening, and then there's the Great Awakening, where everything happens in waves, and up until a certain year, I think, it gets the Earth onto it's a certain level of vibration where 60% of the population on Earth are awakened, and then things can actually shift into and converge timelines. Um, it gets real interesting. It's real interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when we think about what you said, right, there's no separation. So if we're the universe, we're each the universe experiencing itself individually. We're all part of this great awakening. And I remember feeling in the beginning like, oh, I just want everyone to feel this way. I want everyone to know the quote unquote truth, even though it's my truth, right? And it's your truth.
Right.
And there's some souls who are just here on this earth in this lifetime to live a simple life.
To
They're
not
not
wake up.
here.
Yeah.
Their karma, yeah, their blueprint isn't encoded to awaken in this life. And sometimes those are family members, sometimes those are friends, sometimes those are partners.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember learning that. I asked a question to someone. I was like, "Is there a point where all of humanity wakes up?" And he said, "Not really, not really." And then for those that do not restart restart the galactic cycle, and yeah,
Mm.
it's really just they restart it, but also maybe in that cycle they do wake up. So that, like you said, is really just an individual journey of awakening, and we can affect the collective as much as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be the lighthouse.
I love that line in your chapter.
Yeah, because there were moments in my journey where I pushed my views on people, and because we feel like, well, this has helped me. Like, I want to help you. And like, that's the healer in us, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember pulling a card, and my Reiki teacher too, she's like, we're not meant to be right. We're not meant to be right. You just got to be the lighthouse. You got to share your truth, be who you are. And the more you just be who you are, the more people are just going to come into your orbit. I mean, I'm sure you guys have felt this way too. Like, I have old friends like from college messaging me on Facebook. I listen to your podcast and I'm like, I haven't talked to you in decades. Like, this is amazing. And it's just because we are trusting and following our heart.
Yeah. I've been thinking about, it's fun that you bring this up because I've been thinking about that, like who we like have met before we've awakened. And then because there is that relationship now, like it circles back and they're like, well, I know you. And now there's this other part of you to know. Like I've have two friends from high school who, one I've coached now and already finished coaching programs, and one who's like curious and asking questions. And even this morning, somebody I used to work with in pharmacy is like, oh, I'm curious about human design. Can we talk about it? So it's so fun.
And it's just you being you. Like,
Yeah.
how amazing is that? Like, we're just doing the soul work, and we're going to have the people that think we're nuts, of course, but it's worth it. It's worth it to trust and to do what we really came here to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not people that think we're insane and nuts are the people who have been brainwashed and indoctrinated into this false system. So it's actually, when we're called insane, it's actually a compliment.
Oh,
Yeah.
No
I
longer subscribe
embrace,
to the system.
yeah, I embrace the fact that, I think I shared that in my chapter too. Like, if everyone likes you, you're not living your truth.
That's a good one. And I like embracing insane as a compliment instead of, hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like, well, I am,
Yeah.
and to an extent we are, because we don't think like the average person, right? We don't, our brains,
We don't think in a box.
mhm, yeah. I have a question to kind of start wrapping us up. What advice would you give someone who is just starting to awaken? I have listeners from all different levels, but like, or just what advice would you give to someone who is awakened in a still awakening world?
Who is to the person who is awakened in a still awakening world, don't lose heart. I think that can be something that, because the minority, right, of us are the awakened, and then there's just, it's you think of, wow, look at all these other people, like it can be disheartening, but like that contrast allows you to do your work, like lean into your work even more, because the more, as we've shared in this episode, the more we are ourselves, the more we are authentic, the more that light shines, and the people who aren't awakened yet are attracted to that light. And that's the work, the beautiful work. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I would say just continue to ask questions.
Mm.
You ask questions and continue to, learn. The more you ask questions, the more curious you are, it's going to really lead you into your soul path. You're going to find out more information. You're going to find out more insight into what you were here to do.
Yeah. Curiosity. I always say that. Even getting curious about your triggers, getting curious about, just coming back to that childlike state. Beautiful. Well, I absolutely love this, having this conversation with you both. And thank you both for sharing your wisdom, your stories, and your truth with my listeners. It's been a pleasure, and it's my first like kind of table talk conversation. So it's so fun. Where can people find you? Where can people work with you?
So Awaken Now What is available on Spotify and Anchor as a main platform, also Apple Podcasts. And we have a Discord group that is linked on our show.
Yeah, that's awakened ... now what exclamation mark question mark. It's easy to find, so well we'll post the link in the show notes if you have some we'll send you the link.
Perfect. And how can people find you social media wise?
It's also Awaken Now What on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you both. And I look forward to more conversations with you both.
Thanks, Michelle. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us here. It was really fun today.